never before have the lives of so many changed so much, so quickly, as when the engines came to life for the very first time, with a roar that echoed over continents. In the soot and ash covering the streets, the people planted seeds of revolution. Visionaries of commerce and diplomacy electrified the world, and sparks of inspiration flew towards the sky. Up over the smokestacks rose a promise of a grand tomorrow.
So there you have it. Victoria 3 confirmed.
I can barely believe it. Our boy Martin Onward has finally come through with the goods. Victoria 3 confirmed. Now, for those of you who don't know, Victoria is a long-running series over at Paradox Development Studios that is all about building your economy in a brand new world. And what do I mean by a brand new world? Well, a world that is transitioning from the 18th century all the way up to the 20th century. Yes, that's right. This particular game will be running from 1836 all the way up to 1936, a time of massive change where agricultural workers started moving to the factories and ending up on the precipice of World War II. And all of that period in between will be part of this game. And this ranges from social upheaval all the way to nation building, which was a big thing at the time of this particular setup. Now, the developers have gone forward and have said that this is not a map painter. It's mostly not focused on military. There is, of course, military. You can go the war, but you'd rather not to because, you want to make sure that your manpower is sustained throughout. No, Victoria 3 is all about internal and external politics and shaping your society and the laws that are sitting around that. How does your society develop over time? What sort of systems do you adapt? Are you becoming a capitalist or socialist society? And so on. And of course, there's also the building and industrialization of your economy. What sort of production chains are you going to have? Are you going to be focusing on the full-on industrialization through steam engines, or still focus on the basics of agriculture with a large society of people that are mostly working on the land, or urbanization, etc.? And they are referring to this as the tending of the garden of your nation.
National gardening is the principle we set out that the main experience of Victoria 3 is aimed towards the player's country and what's going on inside the player's borders. Now in Victoria 3, as in, for instance, Stellaris, you're playing a country. But in a lot of our other games, most of what's going on outside your borders can be just as important as what's going on inside your borders. And of course, we still have all of these countries, everything going on in the world, just like our other grand strategy games. But Victoria 3 is more inwards focused. So there's a lot of different societies that are simulated in Victoria 3, everything from agrarian feudal states to modern social democracies. And your country, of course, will end up being shaped over the course of the game by both your actions and the will of your people.
Now, if you're a state that is on the cusp of war, which is something that can absolutely happen, there is, of course, multiple things that you can do. And it's all about internal politics. And, of course, how does this all develop? How do you move ahead? Well, it's always possible to not go to war and pressure a different nation into giving you what they want. And they actually have a system in place for this.
One thing we set out to do is that you should be able to play the entire 100-year campaign, never get into armed conflict, and still have a grand old time.
I think it's important to consider that just because war is not central to the enjoyment of the experience, of course, the threat of war is clearly a major theme in the era, and something that we have to simulate, right?
Is that it's a lead up, or rather, it's an attempt to get something from someone that can result in war. But if you play your cards right, you can get what you want, be it a state, to force someone to open their market, a port in a strategic location, or a whole host of other things without a gun ever being fired.
Now, for those of you who are regularly on our channel, you of course know that we mostly look at Stellaris. However, there is a couple of significant overlap systems here between Stellaris as well as Victoria. Specifically, it's gotten to the point where previously people were referring to as Stellaris as being the secret Victoria game, as that was pretty much where it was leading to, and that had mostly to do with the economy system as well as the pops. Now, Martin is the person behind the current pop system. Of course, it's been iterated since then, but it has given him the ability to produce something completely different in terms of era. But the system itself feels very, very similar with demographics, etc. So while Stellaris seems to be a nice prototype for Victoria, it seems to be that the new system, at least in this game, is going to be significantly more in depth.
POPs was originally an acronym. It stands for part of population, and it's basically a demographic, right? It was introduced in the very first Victoria game and has become a beloved part of many PDS games since. In Victoria 3, we continue to use the Victoria pop system, so it's our most detailed pop simulation system yet. Actually goes even deeper than in previous titles, and this is the way that we quantify your population in your country, because having millions of people can be really hard to keep track of, and they all need to have an impact on your country. So we split them up into these demographic chunks that all have their culture and religion.
But there you have it. Victoria 3, a game that takes place in the industrialization era, from the steam age all the way to the early 20th century. I'm looking forward to this one. I'm really, really curious on where the development of this is going. I am a big fan of, for instance, the Anno series, which takes place in the same era, and I'm ready to have my diploma for that game and move on to something greater and shape society within this game. We're going to keep an eye on this, as we have done in the past with other PDS games, of course. We're not going to leave Stellaris in the wake of this. No, we're going to continue on there as well. But Victoria, you know, it's a special place in my heart. So yeah, keep your eyes on the channel. We're going to be covering more and more stuff for Victoria 3 in the future. I want to thank my patrons for making this video possible, and of course you, dear viewer. If you can do me a favor, if you watched the whole video, put down in the comments below, Victoria 3 confirmed. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, take good care of yourselves, and as always, each other.